Power of Evil gets a lot of resources, and I've seen him do pretty well in some of their matches. I think he's generally a pretty good player, and he's always been talked about as one of the top European mids. So yeah, I think we have to keep an eye on mid for sure. And their bot lane, I think Ignar is a really good playmaker. He was actually supposed to be our support on TSM, but Biofrost beat him out in the tryout. So I know his playstyle a little bit since I scrimmed with him in Korea, and he's a really aggressive, really good roaming player. I think he's really good playing hook champions. And yeah, Misfits overall, I think with those two strengths in mind, we should be able to play smart against them. Just play well around mid and support, and we'll be fine.
Welcome back for our next match of the day. It's another clash between EU and NA with the number 2 seed Misfits taking on the number 1 seed TSM. For the North American LCS champions, it's been a good start so far as they find themselves at the top of Group D with 2 straight wins. Let's start with a look at their opponents, Misfits Gaming. Taking a look at the lineups. It's Alfari in the top lane, Maxlor in the jungle, Power of Evil mid, Hansama, AD carry, support Ignar, and Coach Hussein.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the river, we have TSM in the top lane, Honsa, their jungler Svenskeren, mid lane Bjergsen, AD carry Doublelift, support Biofrost, and Coach Hart.
Yeah, and I feel like what we just heard from Doublelift was almost like casual trash talk,
Yeah.
where I didn't even know he tried out for TSM, and he's like, yeah, he tried out, but, you know, our support was better.
Our guy beat him. No big deal.
Man, big reveal. Anyway, I think the big thing for TSM here is to take down the final team in Group D. They had a very close game against Flash Wolves, which when retrospectively looking at it becomes less and less impressive because Flash Wolves is 0-3, and they need to make sure they're staying consistent in the mid-lane game.
And it's going to be exciting to watch Bjergsen go up against Power of Evil. Power of Evil said many a times he's tried multiple times to try and get to the World Championship. He's finally here. One of the big opponents he's now going to have to fight his way through is the legendary Bjergsen, arguably one of, if not the best Western player that we have.
Now, it's really interesting looking at the matchups from Group D specifically because I know this was a conversation we all had between ourselves as casters and analysts. The group of life, as it's been dubbed. So many teams, every team in there happy to say, oh yeah, I'm glad we got put in that group. That's the No Koreans group. This is a great group to be placed into. But being in that group means everybody else feels the same way. They all feel that they can beat each other. And so far, TSM has stepped up. They're the only 2-0 team. If they can beat the Misfits, that means they'll go up to 3-0, start week 1 with a hell of a statement in this group and among these teams.
But they've got to get through Misfits, who looked pretty good, a little bit slow against Team WE yesterday. So let's see how well they can do going up against TSM. Flash Wolves yesterday.
Yeah, and Misfits had a deathless game against that team. Those are incredibly rare at the World Championship. Before this World, the last time a team had a deathless game was back when Alliance perfect game Najin in Worlds 2014. Somehow we had 3 in a row yesterday. It's just an absolute blip of statistics, but really impressive win, Misfits, yesterday.
And one of the big things about Misfits coming into this tournament that they were praised for was their preparation for their opposition. And I love the Tristana ban from Misfits. So far, Doublelift 2-0. He is the second highest damage per minute dealer at this tournament at 801. And Misfits are saying, you know what? I think we've had enough of Doublelift getting Tristana.
Well, along with that, the Misfits are going to ban out Lulu and Jarvan, so taking a couple of those big power picks off the table. And TSM's response is going to be to ban out Rakan, as well as AD carries Varus and Kalista.
And I feel like if Janna isn't picked here, it's a big mistake. Based on the supports that Janna would be picked against, and also just how strong it's been at this tournament.
But you've got to remember that Misfits have had a 100% ban rate of the Blitzcrank. It is Ignar's most popular support. Never mind. I had this whole line about Blitzcrank being available.
Are you trying to contest Janna in Ardent Sensor meta, Venius? What are you doing?
Misfits, they loved picking the Blitzcrank into champions like the Janna because of the pick potential and how you can be super aggressive in lane, and it fits into Ignar's style, but it seems that Ardent Sensor has come
You
out
got
top
to say it at least. That's
at least.
It's basically the same as picking Blitzcrank. You talked about it.
All right, TSM responds to the Janna. They grab the Kog'Maw for Doublelift, and they pick up that Sejuani, which has had a lot of popularity of its own. Instant response from Misfits, grabbing the Gragas for the jungle.
Yeah, gonna have to see what they pair that Kog'Maw with. Tarek definitely another one of those Ardent Sensor users. Morgana could be one of them. Or they could be Rebels, Renegades, pick Braum,
and
which
not
they've
do
done
a
with
Sensor.
Yeah, I think that'll be a mistake. But
Karma
from here,
as well.
Misfits pretty much just picked meta so far. A pretty high priority on the Gragas, but that's because they could get choked out on junglers, and if they want a strong front line, the Gragas is what's left after this 20 pick. And also, that's another Sensor. Don't know how I forgot about Nami.
That uses Ardent Sensor as well, and I really want to keep an eye on how these last bans and picks go, because remember the Misfits was one of the teams that debuted the Trundle. You're up against Sejuani, who gets just an absolutely ludicrous amount of free defensive stats, and if you can alter while that's still active, you steal a portion of those as the Trundle. Incredibly effective.
The thing is, if you're TSM, I think you're quite happy to blind pick the mid right now. Things like Corki and Syndra have been very effective for Bjergsen. He is 10-1 on the champion during the regular season of NALCS. It's a very big comfort pick for him, and I feel like the TSM are happy to just either go for that or just grab themselves the Corki and say, you know, we don't care what you've got.
Let's see how they end up dealing with it. Cassiopeia banned out by TSM means they are thinking about that mid lane. Misfits taking Gnar out of the pool as well. Thinking about those solo lanes, it's pretty much all you've got to think about between these two teams with junglers and bot lanes locked in.
The thing is, if Misfits just choose to ban away things like the Gnar, maybe the Camille, they're basically taking strong alternative carries off, so they can just blind pick the Trundle. Then you're forcing TSM, do you then have another carry under your belt? Or are you going to force yourself into a tank and a potential losing matchup?
TSM not worried about the Trundle themselves. They do ban Orianna instead, focusing strictly on the mid lane in the second phase of the bans.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting choice for Misfits if they keep banning out quote-unquote carry top laners, because they have shown that they're willing to just let Cho'Gath through. Interestingly enough, TSM did that as well. There's a lower Cho'Gath priority, which is often picked at that exact slot for TSM where they'd have a choice right now. We're going to have to see if they go for it. They know with a relative level of certainty that if they do pick Cho, they're going to get a Trundle on the other side. And we know that Trundle has some amazing matchups up against the Cho and the Sejuani.
The big thing here is that Galio is available. TSM could look to just prioritize it, given that the Lucian has now just been banned away from Misfits. We know that they have been playing it, but it seems like they're just going to stick with comfort.
There's that pick that you guys called out, that 10-1 record. Bjergsen has done so much work on this champion against so many opponents. It's one that he falls back to time and time again, and one that he has proven himself on equally as many times. He'll be taking that into battle here again today.
But now I just feel like Misfits could just go for the Galio and Trundle themselves if they so wanted. Oh, but Power of Evil.
Okay.
Wow.
Time for 1-3-1, flanking, trying to get on top of the Cinder. That's what Misfits is going for, and not late game. They're actually ceding the late game over to TSM, putting themselves on a clock. Definitely bold by Misfits.
Because we know TSM does so well in those big late game team fights. That's what we saw them be able to succeed in against the Flash Wolves when they fell behind early. You're saying to TSM, we know your game, we know your element, we think we can beat you with our strategy first.
Yeah, and I think that's why they're going with Renekton against the Shen to help bridge that early game to late game. I think that's a really smart adaptation by Parth to pull that out in this moment. But also, I think what Misfits is doing is potentially their best strategy towards victory here, only because I look at what TSM has done at international events and in the first 2 games of group stage, and that's nothing in the first 20 minutes. They have been 0 kills to 4 against Flash Wolves and 0 kills to 3 against Team WE before turning that around. So you want to be able to snowball that advantage and never let them get off the ground.
And at the very beginning of the year, when Misfits joined the European LCS, along with Kakao, it was strategies like this, with the LeBlanc in the middle lane, that allowed them to get such an impressive record during the spring split. It was because Power of Evil, with his pressure in the mid and his ability to roam, specifically down to the bottom lane, that they were able to get so many of their wins. And now they're going to throw back to that strategy and look to make early plays down the bottom side of the map.
And when we heard from Doublelift, who was he talking about? He was talking about the mid laner, he was talking about the support player. He said we need to keep eyes on mid, which is exactly in line with what you'll have to do against Power of Evil with this LeBlanc.
With those picks, LeBlanc for Syndra, eyes are going to be on mid.
Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. EU versus NA. Here we go yet again, gentlemen. 2 teams squaring off, the best of the West.
Yeah, we got 2 NA versus EU groups to see those matchups. We're going to get 4 of them in the group status here at Worlds. Fnatic versus Immortals was a doozy.
Yeah, to say the least.
Between the 2 of them, we'll see if this one can deliver in the same way.
And we talked a lot about it yesterday, but for Misfits, this is their first time at an international event. A lot of rookies on the team, and to go up against TSM, I had the opportunity to chat with them. They're excited. They love this opportunity. TSM is such a fabled name within the entire League of Legends universe. That it's chanted everywhere. No matter where you go, you'll always hear
Even in
those
playing
chants.
stage when there wasn't TSM.
Exactly.
They chant TSM.
And all Maxler wants to do is shut those chants up. He wants to be the guy to take down TSM and make a name for himself across the world.
Maxler absolutely willing to engage in that banter as well, talking about how they can beat TSM tomorrow faster after they're able to pick up that win against Flash Wolves. And Power of Evil has beaten TSM before, speaking of taking down the brand in stunning fashion several years ago at IEM.
Back with the Twisted Fate Jungle, I believe, was the pick. And I feel like Bjergsen learned from that. Always going to show respect towards what the European squads can bring out. But now let's see, we're jumping into game. We talked about the early game power that Misfits have with the LeBlanc. The big thing you have to respect on TSM side is that Renekton in the top lane, because if they went for the Cho, then you're looking at actually a pushing lane in the top going in favor of Misfits, and in the bottom lane, I'd argue it's slightly in favor of Double, as he's taking a lot of damage right now.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't have to burn a summoner spell, because here's the thing, he started Call and health potions up against the Doran's Blade. He's also got the sustain of Nami. So that's the big reason he was trying to take an even health trade there. Even a slightly less than even health trade can be absorbed back. So just trying to get some cheeky poke in there.
Nami's ebb and flow should do plenty to keep him
careful,
topped off as this lane goes on. But yeah, you really don't want to be losing 2/3 of your health at the start if you can help it. He does get plenty of damage down onto Hans Sama in return, like you mentioned. This bottom lane, we were talking about the low-key flame, saying, oh yeah, Ignar tried out, but Biofrost beat him. Let's see if Biofrost can beat him here where it really matters.
The big thing you've got to be careful of, though, if you're a Nami, is your mana consumption, because it's a pretty expensive skill at level 1, and your mana pool is not the highest. So if you use it aggressively, it means that you don't have that same level of sustain consistently throughout the laning phase.
And Doublelift is going in a very dangerous line right here. He started Cull, he took a bunch of poke early. He hasn't been able to sustain back up. You do this as a strategy because you're not expecting to get all in by a Janna lane, but you gotta be careful about the feathers. You can't get rooted by that, because that's when you could potentially get all in.
Svenskeren thinking about moving towards this bottom lane, but right as he comes down, Ignar drops off the ward into the tri-brush. Means Sven's not going to get a lot accomplished down here. Bjergsen and Power of Evil pretty even in mid.
So we're talking a lot about the bottom lane, but we've got to talk about the mid lane, as largely because Power of Evil, he's running Ignite, gentlemen. We've seen a lot of TP LeBlancs coming out, largely so that she can move off to a slide lane. But Power of Evil, he wants to try and prove something here. He wants to deliver a message to Bjergsen, going for that very aggressive summoner spell.
Well, he'll have his work cut out for him doing it. You can see on your side of your screen there, 10-1, like you mentioned earlier, Vedius, as Syndra during the NALCS this past summer, as well as having a plus 16 CSD at 15 minutes. So not only is he killing his opponents, he's farming well.
Yeah, he has been pretty remarkable on this pick, and the NALCS as a region has played so heavily around mid lane, and they're very used to that game style. The jungle proximities around mid lane have been higher than most other regions, and even at Rift Rivals, that was the lane in which they pulled the head of the European teams in more cases than not. So Power of Evil knows that. He's trying to match that with the Ignite LeBlanc, but it's very difficult. And that's a nice sneak around the vision, but there's plenty more to catch on, sir.
Yeah, that was really well done. Now, if he would have walked into that brush on the side there and managed to come all the way around through the vision, that would have been insane. But instead, he is going to be spotted out. Power of Evil not too worried about this one. It's so difficult to gank a LeBlanc anyway. But it was a good try from TSM.
And now Svenskeren has been spotted out in the jungle of Misfits. Hansama was forced to go back, and now Power of Evil's in trouble.
Svenskeren trying to get himself out here now. Bjergsen providing the covering fire, and it's Power of Evil who has to expend his flash. Heal going to be used bottom lane by the side of TSM as Hans Sama and Ignar continuing to try to put the damage onto these guys, but they're significantly far behind in farm.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're towing a very dangerous line to that bottom lane, but so far, it's working. The Cull is going to be more valuable than that Doran's Blade later. They've already forced Hans Sama back to base once to buy boots, and they traded heals. It's just a matter of, will Misfits break that bottom lane open, which they're going to try to do here. They poked them for so long, and they know the heal is down.
TSM low on health, no heal available. Shield coming down onto Doublelift, but Max Floor bops them. They walk away with the first blood.
Misfits, we talked about how back in the day when they first joined the European LCS liked to play around bot lane, and Doublelift plays a little too greedy. He sticks around too long, he takes too much harassment. No vision through the river as well gives Misfits an easy avenue to get that first blood.
Yeah, just a ton of greed sticking around for too long there and taking too many bad trades. Also not having the jungler cover when that happens. They fall to what looked like an easy-to-execute gank by Maxler. Literally just hit him with the flash and then autoed him in the face. So overly greedy by Doublelift. It's what leads up to this gank that TSM needs to criticize for.
And you can see here, good knockup from Ignar as well. There's very little Doublelift to do. He's the Baron, but there's no need to flash. You're just wasting some of his spells. TP even comes in from Alfari. Arguably not necessary, but it keeps the minion wave alive long enough to guarantee.
I gotta say, really nice play there by Maxler, watching it again. Flashing to the instant body slam to make it around the minion wave and actually get that CC so Doublelift couldn't flash the body slam to potentially get away.
He's here to send a message, Jet. He's here to prove that he is a world-class jungler, and he's off to a good start in this first.
Hansama and Doublelift more trading, but Hansama losing this one decidedly. Biofrost shows up there, 34 to 33 CS. So after Doublelift goes down, that helps equalize this a bit. TSM gonna really have to respect their opponents here. Misfits just now cresting the 10,000 gold mark, nearly 1,000 up compared to TSM.
Yeah, and this is what we talked about at the end of the draft phase. Misfits drafting early game, because that is also where TSM has been pretty weak at this year's World Championship. They've now been first blooded in all 3 games.
Bubble not finding its way onto Hansama there. Bjergsen responding to Power of Evil, jumping forward by throwing the ultimate back at him. That Unleashed Power will take off about 2/3 of his health. Power of Evil with the Corrupting Potion, but it's out of charges, so it'll be hard to recover as Hansama. It's a lot of damage here in the bottom lane yet again. Doublelift runs out of Bioarcane Barrage time right as Hans walks up.
And look at the mana on Biofrost. It's going to be harder for him to continue that kind of level of trading as Hansama and Ignar continue the push. Also keep your eyes on the vision towards the bottom lane. Alfari is now level 6. He's gone for a very early Bramble Vest to make the laning phase a little bit easier, but he's actually ahead of Hansa in terms of the 1v1.
Yeah, could be coming. Nice dodge.
Maxlor trying to knock Svenskeren back. Sven is low. He's going to be taken down here. Svenskeren popped by Power of Evil.
TSM, they try to go for an early skirmish in the river, and they get very quickly punished by that of Misfits.
Yeah, you have to respect the Shen when it's level 6. Making those invades becomes more and more dangerous. Invading without a flash, he wanted the vision, shouldn't have incurred the risk.
And now Maxlor, he's on his way bot as well.
Here
you
we
can
go.
see Hansama and Ignar already a big trade.
Oh, TSM's gonna fall into the same trap twice. Maxlor coming down, moving around, and Hansama takes the kill on the Doublelift.
Here comes
as
Power of Evil.
gonna be taken down next. Yup, 4-0 for Misfits.
Such a classic Misfits play. We haven't seen this from them in so long, but it feels like only yesterday that they're able to pull this one off. 4-0 in favor of Misfits, and they're off to a fantastic start.
Exactly, you gotta credit that bottom lane for getting the poke low enough for those dives to work. Doublelift has less than 100 health for a lot of those dives when they're coming through. They're playing that bottom lane. Too greedy, getting poked too hard. Hansama and Ignar doing a great job to set up these dives.
So let's take another look.
This is the play that we saw earlier on. Maxlor, he has vision of this, and Sven goes in. Remember, he has no flash. Yesterday, TSM, they respected the Shen from Team WE perfectly, but today they do not. Sven has no flash. Power of Evil is very quickly able to roam around, and I feel like, this is the play down in the bottom lane.
Exactly. Yes, they're trading poke, but Ignar also is level 6, so he can just ult to heal Hansama up. It's a beautiful bait. Barrier plus ultimate. Don't even use the summer spell here. And then Maxlor doesn't even touch Doublelift, doesn't want to take another kill. Power of Evil comes in as well on the end. The kill distribution very strong at the end as well.
I really like watching Maxlor wait for those 2 caster autos to hit the Kog'Maw, making sure maybe they'll get the kill, maybe they won't, but he wanted to give that kill over if at all possible. It works out for him.
Yeah, and watching the very start of that sequence again, the fact that Svenskeren moved forward onto a level 6 Gragas when he himself was level 5 and the Shen was in a game is just strictly over-aggression.
And we've seen mistakes in the early game in every single TSM game so far, specifically from Svenskeren. He's been caught out, he's been killed for free. It's one area where this team needs to shore up that weakness.
Yeah, but what we haven't seen yet in the group stage is mistakes from Doublelift in the early game as well. So when you're adding them together, the deficit could be too large to overcome.
And this is going to give a very early Infernal Drake over to Misfits. We talked about how it was crucial for them to get this early lead. Would this group of rookies be able to do it against the powerhouse that is TSM? And so far, they've identified the weakness of TSM, and they've been able to successfully get this early advantage.
We talk about TSM playing late. We talk about him being good at team fights. Well, one way to deal with that a bit is to get yourself an Infernal Drake. Have some more late game team fight damage. as Bjergsen moves himself topside, looking to maybe make a play onto Alfari here, but Alfari knows something's up.
His spidey senses tingling. He feels a roam coming on. Good communication there from Misfits to recognize Bjergsen was gone. It will result in a lot of chip damage going down onto this top tower, but this is kind of what you expect in the matchup. The fact that Alfari is at this deficit, but has still been able to contribute to the bottom lane of Misfits, is still a positive net for game for Misfits.
And we got to track two things that are both working towards the same goal. Misfits' ability to snowball and TSM's ability to equalize and bridge towards that late game, because the LeBlanc Shen falls off in a big way when the Kog'Maw can get some magic resist and the rest of the TSM team can scale up. So it's on Misfits to push the tempo in this game.
And the one thing you can definitely praise Misfits for during their regular season is that they've been in these kind of deficits. They're used to playing, I wouldn't say used to playing from behind, but they know how to play from behind. This is not uncommon for them. You see a bit of trading down the bottom lane.
Sama going to be taking some auto attacks yet again. Bubble finds him though. That's going to be big. There's your tidal wave. Stand United comes in. The Shen ultimate coming in clutch to keep that 80 carry alive.
Big mistake there from Hansama, which Doublelift is very quick to punish him on. That's going to force the ultimate out from Alfari, and now the playmaking potential of Misfits can be heavily mitigated for the next few minutes.
And I'm very surprised that Misfits used the Janna ultimate, the Shen ultimate, before just the Xayah using the ultimate to go untargetable and walk backwards. That would have potentially been a much easier way out, because the Nami Kog'Maw all-in isn't necessarily that scary, but they also now have Sejuani. Knowing they've burned those ultimates down, it might go for it.
Let's see if Svenskeren can find something here. The ward
Not
goes over the
spotted
wall.
by that.
He's not spotted by it. The control ward's going to go ahead and silence it. Hanser, meanwhile, top side, putting plenty of damage into that turret. Gets turret first blood for the side of TSM, which takes the gold back to very close to even. Maxwell throws a ward down to see if Svenskeren's hanging around this area. Does find him out.
Look at that solo lane CS, 121 to 94, 118 to 89. The roaming is paying a cost, taking a toll for Misfits right now. I think TSM was winning those lanes slightly before the roams, but once you leave a lane that's down a little bit, it costs you huge. 2-0 on LeBlanc, but 4,300 gold on both sides.
It's dead even. Bjergsen is up 4 gold. Well, he was. Then it changed. But you know what I mean. He was very, very close in the gold. It was almost identical. Now with the game only 400 gold apart, Misfits is looking to return to the scene of the crime for a third time, but TSM is finally wise to it.
And this is why we talked about the onus being on Misfits to continue this early game play. They need to keep the pressure on, otherwise eventually Misfits will get to a point where they can challenge Misfits in these fights. They do have the advantage of knowing how to play in these late game. And Misfits, the one thing we have seen from them is that they can get pretty slow in their playstyle once they get into the late game. That matchup against Flash Wolves, it took them 40 plus minutes to be able to finally close that one out.
One thing I want to comment on that I find very interesting, Bjergsen going for the Mercury Treads before anything else in this mid lane matchup against Power of Evil. We've kind of criticized the TSM bot lane for not showing enough respect towards what Misfits can do. Bjergsen saying, all right, we can't have 2 lanes doing that. I'm going to be very respectful of this LeBlanc.
He still remembers the jungle TF. He's like, I refuse to get CC'd again by those random other players, and I think that he is admirably showing a fair amount of respect to Parry, but also on that LeBlanc, as you rightly said, and the Ignite in the mid lane as well, so I think it makes a lot of sense.
Got to be concerned about that kill pressure as TSM moves the bottom lane towards the top side, considering the turrets have been traded 1-for-1 so far. You're also now starting to see those first item power spikes come online. You got a Cleaver on your Renekton. Gunblade for LeBlanc is a huge one. Morello Namakan on Syndra, as well as the Rage Blade for Doublelift, despite the first couple of deaths slowing him down.
And that is a very big spike for Doublelift as well. Even though he has been put in an early deficit, that Kog'Maw is still going to hurt. One big misplay from Hansama could cost him dearly, as we see both teams making their way towards the TSM bot lane again.
Who's going to strike first? Misfits wanted to find this setup yet again, but TSM sending Svenskeren up here, thinking about what's happened so far, smelling something funny here again.
Yeah, TSM much more prepared for that one. At this point, the gold difference is pretty much just Svenskeren versus Maxwell. And looking at that top side, this is Hanser once again having that huge performance. Look at that CSD at 15. He was a big split push threat, but now Bjergsen getting another Cinder ult out. It's got to get away now.
Bjergsen forced to flash over the wall to get away from that when the Shen ultimate comes in again for Misfits. They're making good use out of this.
Going towards Rift Herald as well, knowing they have Bjergsen's flash and ultimate down. Seems like a pretty safe play that could maybe break open the base a little bit.
Well, Misfits working on that Rift Herald. TSM doesn't really seem too keen on stopping them, so this should go away pretty much free. One more hit onto Shelly's eyeball, and There we go. And you can see on the bottom of your screen there, Misfits in their win versus Flash Wolves. Even though they were ahead the entirety of the game, they never gave up a kill. They didn't control these lesser objectives in Dragons and Rift Heralds. But this game, they've got the one Dragon so far, they've got the one Rift Herald so far. They're making up for that.
This is a very common trend that we do see from many European teams in terms of their low priority on objectives like the Dragon. That changes a little bit when an Infernal's on the board, but aside from that, they're more focused on trying to get these towers. But Misfits, even though when they had the lead, they did not prioritize it. This time around, they are the ones with the early game pressure. They're the ones that have the lane advantages, and so they're utilizing that to get these early objectives where they can.
And I do wonder if we're going to see a priority around this Infernal Drake. You can see Bjergsen's hoping to go and posture a little bit. Power of Evil snuck into this Brock. This is a very good sneak.
Bjergsen doesn't have his flash. Remember, he had to use it last time, and now he's going to be jumped on the damage coming through, but Biofrost keeps him alive! Somehow! Bjergsen walks away!
Fantastic play from Bjergsen. This is why he's known as a legend, getting an amazing outplay, getting 2 kills onto the 2 members of Misfits, and now their eyes are on the Dragon.
That is such a huge breaking point in this game as Misfits is trying to snowball through, trying to get the double Infernal, the Drakes you dream of when you're playing an early game composition. They go for the kill, which is the right play to make. You want to kill Bjergsen to stop that Infernal Drake, but it backfires.
Beautiful play from TSM, and I'm just so impressed with how quickly they responded as well. The key thing here to note is the chains from Power of Evil. He uses this double dash, cannot land the chains as of yet. The minions are in the way. Maxwell comes a little too late, and that gives Bjergsen all the time in the world to get the outplay going. The bubble from Biofrost, the TP from Haunter, the rest of TSM collapse, and they keep their mid laner alive.
One chain, the difference in that kill turning around. Misfits had played over an hour's worth of game time without dying until that play turned around. And now, TSM has the lead.
TSM getting the gold lead from that one, albeit ever so slightly. That Infernal Drake tie-up is huge. And look at the top left part of your screen, ladies and gentlemen. Infernal number 3 will be the next neutral objective to spawn in that bottom part of the map. Just a few minutes from now, these teams are going to have plenty to fight over. The Misfits, they got to be reeling after that one. Such a heartbreaker to get Bjergsen that close, only to not find the kill.
Misfits, they really wanted to try and snowball it. Bjergsen had no flash. As you said, Chad, it was the correct play, but the execution just fell apart for Misfits. And now the pressure's on because they're going to have to try and find more of these picks, but Haunter is very strong. TSM still have a lot of control over the map, even though their vision has been pushed back slightly. Misfits doing their best to control this river.
Yeah, they still have the Rift Herald on Ignar as well, so they can use that to break a turret. Oftentimes, you see the use of Rift Herald being made because that's such an important lane to crack, but it's very tempting to use that top lane knowing that one charge would kill the turret.
Scaring clears out the control ward as Misfits try to stop him, dashes himself away. Cask is not exactly on the mark, but Maxwell wanted to go for the try anyway. Had PoE right next to him in case they did have that Cask angle properly. But now Misfits have got to find some way to take control in this game yet again. We've mentioned the compositional difference. They've also got that stylistic difference where this team doesn't normally succeed in late game situations up against TSM, who does.
And I think a lot of it has to be on Han Sama's shoulders. Gets the turret gold there, got the turret gold bottom lane, has the 1 kill. He's 1,200 gold ahead of Doublelift, and he's got a Janna backing him up. So really big emphasis on him being in the right position, because if he gets caught by a Cinder ultimate, the extended damage in the fights is gone.
And I think it all comes down to that, the Syndra ultimate from Bjergsen. I feel like he's already been such a staple part of the team. In game 1, he said himself he felt he didn't have a massive impact in their game versus Flash Wolves, but moving into the rest of the group stages, especially yesterday when they went up against Team WE, he felt like he had so much more, getting that solo kill down on Shiei, and now getting this very significant outplay in them.
All right, they unleashed Shelly mid lane onto the TSM tier 1. Bjergsen had to use his ultimate earlier, kind of just as a get-off-me mechanism when they were trying to find yet another kill onto him, so they don't have that damage potential should a fight break out. TSM not wanting to fight without that one. Then Scarin just wants to clear out this blue buff, get it ready for Bjerg.
Breaking the mid lane turret is so insanely important for 1-3-1 compositions. It opens up the entire map because it gives you more avenues with which you can invade the jungle to get wards and ultimately find picks. So it is so important that Misfits focusing up on this mid lane to get it.
Power of Evil starting up the split push game now. Going to be sitting up there in the top side. Vedius, you mentioned this Ignite at the start of the game, and I want to go back to it because it means when he is split pushing, when he is in that side lane, he won't have the teleport to make it into fights. It means Misfits will have to play the split push game very correctly and very cleanly.
But what they have done is, as you rightly identified, Flies, he's already got the push up in the top lane. And now they're trying to get a bit of vision down into TSM's jungle and use the power of LeBlanc to find these picks. Like this ward here from Bjergsen. He does take a fair amount of damage from Power of Evil. Now hitting that level 13 mark. We'll have 2 points in the ultimate. We'll have 2 skills maxed as well. When you combine that with the Gunblade, that's a lot of burst.
Flash away from Hansama, recognized he was in some serious trouble there as Hanser and Sven charge after him.
You know, Jack, you mentioned that we're going to be looking at Hansama to be one of the big carries, but he's now made 2 big mistakes that he really should be making at this kind of level, because in the bottom lane we saw him go for a very bad trade against Doublelift, forcing ultis out of Alfari and Ignar, and right there, why is he taking that path behind, I mean through the jungle? Like, it's very easy for TSM to very quickly punish.
Exactly, and that lowers the amount of pressure they can apply in the mid lane, which is so important for them to open up, so he has to play a cleaner game. He's gotten the advantage with the help of his team and also some great harass on a Doublelift early, but he's got to pay it forward to the rest of the team. You can see Doublelift now, he's got his wits about him, is building defensive as possible. Ninja on his way to a wits end.
But will we see another Randuin? Will we see another Randuin?
Can you imagine a wits end Randuin's Rageblade Cog? I think it would still do a lot of damage.
Yep.
Need the gold to get those items, though. That's the big thing.
Right, and Doublelift not exactly feeling the gold right now. I want to check in on that farm that you mentioned earlier, Jat, because the solo lanes for TSM still about 25, 30, almost even 40 ahead for Bjergsen right now, but it's Doublelift who's falling behind nearly 40 himself. The story kind of being told as the solo lanes sacrifice themselves for bottom lane control. Hanser now going to be jumped on that 3 versus 1. Not a situation that even a big old Croc can get himself out of. Tries to, but can't quite do it. He will make Shen use the standing knife.
Yeah, trades his flash for a Shen ultimate, really trying to pull off those quick Renekton combos that are possible with the Titanic Hydra to threaten that kill. I don't think he actually would have killed, but the gusto with which he went for it forced the Shen ultimate.
And I do love the vision that we're seeing from Misfits. They've done a great job of pushing their vision line deeper into the side of TSM's map, and you can really see it in the bottom side of TSM's jungle. They had this entire area littered with blue wards and made sure that TSM could see nothing. Horta had this false sense of security, he overextends ever so slightly, and now the dragon is spawning just in time for Misfits to start it off. And look at the positioning of TSM.
They're going for Baron.
TSM willing to call a bluff on this one, say, all right, you want to get 2 Infernal Drakes? We're going for this one. TP going to be used here as well, but Misfits already have the Drake. TSM is not doing this exceptionally quickly right now. Doublelift over the wall with the Fire Barrage. Baron still dropping rapidly. Misfits not aware, and TSM, 23-minute Baron.
What was that play? TSM, they just walked straight towards the Baron. We were praising Misfits for their vision, but they had no vision around that Baron area. 23 minutes into the game, TSM make the right call, and they get a huge advantage over their opposition.
Absolutely. TSM sees the Infernal Drake, knows that's going to be a juicy pinata to go chase after. But the Baron is the real objective, especially when playing against Misfits, who we just talked about, usually focuses Baron over the Drake. And overcorrection, they still have the Kog'Maw to burst that down, and that is a huge moment in this game.
Is that not the same sort of a trap that we saw Immortals fall into against Longzhu? When they were ahead, they were going for the Drake, everything was going their way. Longzhu says, okay, it's an early 20 minutes something into the game, pull the trigger, go for Baron, they get it, and that was the turning point in that game. Now in this game, we'll have to see if TSM can make a lot of moves based on that. Right now, we have found ourselves into a pause, hopefully only a minor issue, and we can get back into game ASAP.
I'm flabbergasted, boys. I cannot believe the Misfits would just leave that exposed. They're usually a team that around the 20-minute mark just have so much great control around the Baron area. This is something that during the European LCS regular season, they would use to start off a lot of their fights. They weren't that confident in just trying to fight in the middle lane, in the enemy jungle. It was always around that Baron area. They let the vision drop for a little bit, and TSM, they just make an amazing call. Just like, hey guys, we can go. Let's rush it down. We're going to get this objective. And it's going to buy them a load of time, because remember, this is a team where their composition is going to have so much more power in the late game. That Kog'Maw is still ramping up. Yes, the Renekton, you could argue that he falls off, but in terms of teamfight value compared to a Shen, I would say that he adds a lot more.
Yeah, and I think, thinking about how the Baron sneak happened, right? Because Baron sneaks this early in the game require 2 parties to actually cooperate. One team has to be willing to make the call that they think they can sneak it, and the other team either has to not have vision or be sleeping a little bit and not check, because that thing does not go down quickly. So I think some of this could be attributed to the team compositions, and some of it can be contributed to Worlds experience. We mentioned how Misfits is so new on the World stage, and Baron sneaks happen all the time in these high-pressure moments when you're so focused on other things. You're talking about playing against TSM at Worlds. If they beat them, they can go 2-1. They can tie for first in the group. Double Infernal Drake. They can get a second one. All those things compounded together make it more likely for them to make an abnormal play, and TSM called them on it, get the Baron.
Just want to update everybody on the state of the pause and exactly what we're investigating here. It appears Power of Evil is calling attention to an issue where his LeBlanc clone killed the blue buff. The buff then did not transfer over to LeBlanc herself. So that's what we're taking a look at to see exactly how that all played out and whether or not there's some issue there.
Yeah, that's
and right now,
an unfortunate
in the meantime,
move.
Let's go ahead and take another look at exactly what you were talking about, Jat, with how that play happened, how everything worked out with TSM being able to grab the Baron. I believe we have the replay ready that we can take a look at to see the trade.
So this is where they're able to get the kill onto Haunter. Bear in mind, there is no vision down towards the bottom side. Haunter doesn't realize this is happening, and Misfits get a good collapse. Haunter, he tries his best to get the kill. He gets a surprising amount of burst the Power of Evil's not expecting, but Alfari is there ready with the ultimate to keep him alive, which, in all honesty, probably wasn't even necessary. Now, TSM, they're grouping up towards the top side, and just keep your eyes on the mini-map, because I believe Misfits have an inkling that this is actually starting off. There should be a blue ping that comes out. There it is. So they ping it, they realize that this is happening, and they just accept.
Say, hey, they might be a Baron. It's like, well, we can't make it in time, and if we face check, we're going to go into a Sejuani ultimate.
Exactly, so they just concede the objective. But I think they don't realize how slow this actually goes down.
Right.
I think they could have tried to make a play towards it, but instead, they just concede it. They realize, oops, we made a mistake. We're just going to play on and hope for the best.
Now, I want to ask you guys directly, because this whole time we've been talking about the game plan differences, been talking about the comp differences. If you're Misfits and your early game plan has been going according to plan so far, and now there's just this giant wrench thrown into the gears, how do you deal with this? How do you address this and get back on track?
Well, unfortunately for Misfits, they just kind of have to stall out the Baron. It becomes a little bit of an awkward spot, because in a full 5v5, I don't feel confident that they would just straight up win it in the moment. Which means that TSM, the pressure's in their court. They're the ones that are going to start sieging up onto these tier 2s, and they're the ones that are going to force Misfits into this uncomfortable situation.
Update on the pause situation. The clone did kill the buff. The buff did not transfer over to the real LeBlanc. This is a known bug that teams were aware of before entering into the game, and teams will play through it. The game will continue as is. There will not be any remakes. There will not be any chrono breaks. We've solved the problem, sort of.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not resolved, and Power of Evil is going to have to play through this right now, but there is a list of known issues, so to speak, or bugs, as you can call them, that teams have seen, and some of them say this is a known issue, will not remake for this, because technically Power of Evil could have outplayed it in a sense of not having his clone hit the bug, but that sucks. I'm just going to say that right now.
It's not good.
This absolutely
really
sucks
bad
for Power of Evil, and it's a really hard thing for him to have to play through now and not get tilted at this moment.
All right, let's see how well Misfits can now play on the defensive, wait out that Baron buff like you were talking about, Vedius, or if TSM can gain some momentum from this one. Haunts are pushing up to the bottom side with those Baron Enchanted minions, makes it very easy to take down the turret itself. TSM slightly up, 500 gold, the tune of their lead now. Not much to speak of, really. They need to utilize this to get as many objectives as possible. Tier 1 still standing in the mid lane for Misfits, as TSM tries to figure out exactly how they want to approach this.
Yeah, and they're in a big power position right now. They can split push with the Renekton. If too many resources get sent down towards them, then TSM would be able to make a play on the other side. And when sieging turrets like this, you have to be in such respect of the Cinder Stun. If he catches one, it could be the death of one person, and the Baron empowered minions could give TSM a big lead in this game.
Trying to push up middle, but Misfits doing a good job preventing that from working right now. TSM now appears to be trying to set a trap or a pick in the enemy jungle. Clearing out some wards as they go. Svenskeren on the front line. Bjergsen looking to find a stun. Not going to be doing it, but now Bjergsen and the rest of TSM have got to be careful. The Sejuani ulti not finding its mark onto anyone. Bjergsen below half spin as well. Doublelift takes out the red buff. Misfits can't quite collapse just yet, but Power of Evil is coming around from the flank. Misfits still may want to take this fight. Remember, the Sejuani has no ultimate.
Where's the rest of the engage? It's on a Shen. He's going to come in. They want to deliver.
Power of Evil trying to get in there as well. Svenskeren now going to be taken low. He's the target first and foremost, trying to get himself away. Ignar going to fall to Doublelift, and TSM turning this one around as Haunter continues to apply the damage. Grabbing the kill onto Alfari.
That was so close to being an initiation, but Power of Evil snapped back on the block as Alfari goes in, and the initiation was botched from there. TSM get the kills, and boy, are they sticking around at low health.
Power of Evil has the power to maybe make something happen here. This is what LeBlanc is born to do, but it's just so risky. TSM recognizes that. They back themselves away.
Sama.
Double lift, no mana, almost no health. PoE still looking to maybe find that instant pop onto the TSM line. Featherstorm comes out just to find them in the brush. TSM still moving exactly as a unit, getting themselves away. Power of Evil looking for the damage onto Hanser or Bjergsen, splits his fire a little bit. Hanser nearly taking out the heal to keep him alive to the Ignite, but it is not enough.
Wow, such teamwork attempt there by TSM to all kind of save each other as Misfits go in there, but there were so many missed opportunities for Misfits during that fight as TSM did everything in their power to navigate out of that flank that Misfits managed to find.
Such a close fight between the two teams, but it was Misfits that come out on top. Unfortunately for them, they could not translate it into any tower advantages, and it ends up just being an even trade in kills, or a slight favor to TSM, I believe, but the gold's still very even, still very close game, and now the Baron has worn off. Misfits have successfully defended, and now we move into a neutral state in the game once more. And that all started with a red buff, Captain Flowers.
It's honestly incredible to me that TSM got Baron and Misfits still has a tier 1 turret standing.
And this is so key. They're trying to use the LeBlanc as a Shen delivery system and find taunts on the flashless targets like Bjergsen. Power of Evil goes in, but he snaps back before Shen arrives, so no one gets onto Bjergsen. Great bubble on the Janna ultimate from Biofrost onto Ignar. Double Lift and Hanser are now unleashed because the backline is free, and TSM carry the fight from there.
Really well played there from TSM, and just a big misplay from Power of Evil. If he had stuck into the middle of the fight for just a little bit longer, taken advantage of the Shen ultimate, that taunt could have swung the fight so heavily in their favor, but he pulls out. He doesn't want to commit. He doesn't want to take that risk, and it ends up backfiring for them.
Yeah, but the risk of staying in is winning the fight. If you go out, you lose the fight because the Shen can never access it, so tragic mistake right there.
League of Legends is a game of seconds and oftentimes just microseconds, and that was the difference between that LeBlanc snap being right where it needed to be and being slightly early like we saw. Power of Evil now walking over a ward. TSM knows that Misfits players are waiting in their side of the jungle. They aren't going to face check that right now as Bjergsen moves up to clear away some of the minions. Power of Evil jumping in. Every single time Bjergsen uses that Scatter the Weak to keep him away, he immediately retreats to his previous distortion.
Bjergsen doing what he can to just zone Power of Evil off that all-in combo. You can even see Zhonya's now being worked towards by Power of Evil, so maybe next time he'll have that extra defensive utility to be able to stay in the fight a little bit longer. But note how Misfits still have pressure on two lanes, in mid and in bot. They don't care that much about top because the Mountain Drake is spawning soon, and that's going to be their next main objective. Alphari just needs to hold Haunter off for the time being, but he's decided not to go for like the Hydra to have that extra bit of wave clear and trading power.
As the Baron buff has faded away and things have gone back to normal, it's Misfits that seem to be back in control of the tempo of the game. The gold still slightly favoring TSM, as we mentioned earlier, but it's so close that Misfits still feel in control of the game.
Yeah, and we've learned a few things about gold leads so far at the World Championship right now. It matters who kills the Nexus. The gold leads haven't had that much of an impact depending on who can find the fights at the end of it. So it feels like TSM still very much playing the late game there, and getting the Baron has definitely extended how long it's been until they would fall into a deficit, but they might not even go for this Drake.
Drake live again, this time Baron not alive in time to be taken as a response. TSM moving in, looking to stop Misfits from taking this away. Dragon is very, very low. Who's going to grab the smite? The answer's Max Lore. Svenskeren having to retreat. Biofrost eating a lot of damage from Power of Evil. TSM moving themselves out again as one 5-man unit.
Waiting for the Shen ultimate in base so we could ult in with home guards, but they call it off.
TSM continuing to push. They've got priority over the mid lane. They have the inside track. Still quite a lot of damage that needs to be put onto this tier 1 to take it out, and they can't find it.
So Misfits, they walk away with the Drake. They don't lose anything in return. Power of Evil doing a great job of just applying pressure off on the side. And now Alphari has left the base. He's making his way up through the middle lane, ready to join his team. But TSM, they want this 5v5 situation. They want Misfits to group up.
They have control of Baron. Look at the vision from Misfits. It's not very much. Also, their far side totem is on cooldown already, so they don't have a safe way of getting that vision back.
TSM continuing to defend this brush. We have seen so many fights at Worlds 2017 so far around this spot, and it looks like we're gonna get another one. Initiation from Max Floor. TSM having to stay alive. Haunter trying to zone Power of Evil away, but TSM health bars are being destroyed. They have to back away from this one. The Feather Storm flies, and Biofrost gonna be jumped on next. Power of Evil barely walking away. Flash into the taunt. They've got the lockdown. Bjergsen's out of there, and Hansama writes his death note as the rest of TSM have to escape.
Oh, they want so much more. They are not stopping this chase.
Monster trying to return some damage, wants to punish this chase from Misfits, but they're so far ahead in terms of health. TSM has nothing they can do.
The jungler is still alive in TSM, though. Misfits, they've got a lot of low health members, and if they want to start the Baron, there's the risk of a steal. Haunter has the teleport too. He didn't lose his GA, so Misfits, they're just going to walk away with the kill.
You have to wonder whether or not them going for Baron after having TSM solo versus chasing for kills is a call that was worth making, but I think it was the right one, chasing through to get a few more kills based on how TSM would still be able to harass it. I gotta say, Maxlor is having an incredible game, initiation after initiation to set these things up, but it hasn't been quite enough to actually get them a big lead.
But think about all the summoner spells that have now been used from both sides. If Maxwell can get that same kind of initiation, or Sven can do the same for TSM.
They can still go for Baron now.
Misfits going
Bjergsen
for
just go
it.
top lane.
Trying to force this one down. Bjergsen top side means that he's got no way to reliably get down here quickly. TP gonna be used. And they scare Misfits away for now. Baron resetting. Might see yet another fight here in this topside river.
And this is the Misfits we were talking about. The way in which they play around Baron. They use it as a means to force their opponents to make a move, and then they just disengage. They get the teleport out from Haunter, and now it's so much harder for him to move off onto a side lane, whereas Alfari, his ultimate is down. Hesitant to move off to the bottom lane, but once it's up, Misfits are the ones that will have that side lane pressure, and it makes things harder for TSM to control the map the way they want to.
TSM quickly learning just how effective Misfits can be in team fights like this.
Yeah, and right here, Maxlor sees an opportunity to get the carries. He gets both carries with his E, but doesn't actually get the ultimate to chain into it, which is critical to knock no one back. It means TSM can keep spacing. We got some tense moments in the mid lane, however.
We got to praise Bjergsen once again for a fantastic knockback stun onto Maxwell to prevent him from getting that ultimate, which could have ended in disaster for TSM. So the mid lane are coming up big once again.
TSM continuing to defend, Misfits continuing to pressure, the gold continuing to be a couple hundred apart. Both these teams just locked in this constant struggle, blow for blow. Time and time again. Haunter not wanting to walk too close to that brush. Not the best idea.
And so many analysts talked about how TSM were the heavy favorites in this group, and Misfits were in a position to go 0-3 in the first week. And the fact that they're putting this much pressure onto TSM has got to be such a big confidence boost for them, regardless of the outcome.
Absolutely. TSM, the group that everybody said, oh yeah, they should win. They should win Group D. Misfits, a lot of people put them at the bottom. A lot of people said these guys probably don't stand much of a chance in this group, but now they're the ones who have been looking so damn good in this game against TSM so far. That Baron, that underestimation of the speed at which TSM can take it, that's what ended up costing them. But other than that, it's been a pretty clean game.
Yeah, and the big thing that's costing TSM right now is that teleport that Haunter used when Bjergsen showed top lane for the minion wave and Misfits turned around Baron, because that Shen, as slow as he may be moving because he has no Hydra to hit that turret, is going to kill that turret unless TSM make a move on the other side.
Red turret destroyed. You can see it on your screen. That's going to be number 4 for Misfits. Hansama running away off to the side. Svenskeren not really finding anybody with the flail.
This is super smart by Misfits right now, and TSM is forced into forcing Baron. Otherwise, the Shen's going to take an inhibitor. They just got to go and try to fight.
Here we go. Svenskeren will be waiting over the wall. Finds some stuns. Only on to Maxlor, though. That's the front line. They're still going to take him very low. Haunter looking to find his way onto Hansama, but the feathers fly, and he's forced to retreat. The feathers will stay down. He doesn't recall them with the Blade Caller just yet. TSM now backing themselves away. Haunter, no ulti. TSM back onto the Baron.
They're back on the Baron, but they accomplished the goal of getting the Shen ultimate out. They feel so confident in this play. Incredibly risky.
Svenskeren tanking the Baron, losing a lot of his health to this one. Bjergsen low on mana. He can't contribute very well to this fight. Power of Evil, more chains coming through, but TSM backs away.
So many ultimates are unavailable for TSM. They don't feel confident to stick enough in this fight, and Hansam are going to quickly try to punish. Misfits playing around this Baron beautifully. And they're forcing TSM back. Oh no, TSM, they're back on the Baron!
They're trying to do a
TSM
fake
made
out.
it. They're trying to go for the Baron yet again. Alfari on the front line. Misfits does not have everyone around.
Rockets is
Ignar
in base.
and Maxflor are back in the base. TSM may still be able to secure this. Alfari trying to buy the time, but Double Lift is gone! The Baron's secured by TSM, but they still lose one.
What
Make it two.
an aggressive call. The GA pops up. It's the second death. And now what do they do with 54 seconds, 36 seconds? Those are the death timers for TSM.
This is the chance for Misfits to push up, take whatever they can find. You've got that 5 versus 3 moment. You've got the minions waiting right outside the base. It's time to break it open.
Maxlor's flash is up. Bjergsen's is not. He's going to go for it.
Bjergsen having to respect this, having to back himself away. TSM knows there's no way to defend this here.
Look at the Elder Drake as well. Misfits, if they get the inhibitor and turn this double Infernal plus Mountain into an Elder, that's still a pretty big game. What a fantastic fight that we are seeing between the EU and North American representatives, constantly back and forth. TSM with the quick decision making, but Misfits coming out with the team fight wins. Now TSM, they're concerned about the Elder. They do use the Farsight into the pit.
No flash on Bjergsen. Wherever he goes, he's in danger.
Power of Evil jumps out to the vision. Double Lift, the one who's caught out yet again, taunted up and brought down. Svenskeren having to run, but he still should be taken down here. 4, make it 5 versus 1.
Think about who just died for TSM. That's double. One of the big carries of the team has been taken out. Bjergsen still has no flash, and Misfits have all 5 members.
They don't have Baron, but they do got a really big minion. Some call him a super minion in the mid lane. 3 versus 5. Bjergsen no flash. Bio no flash. They do have redemption, but this is a hard defense. Misfits going for the win.
If Bjergsen wants to make a name for himself as a legend, this is the time to do it. Only him and the Nexus stand in the way.
One Nexus turret gone. TSM have to make their fight with the flash into the taunt, able to find Bjergsen. He's gonna go down soon. He grabs the kill into PoE, but he still falls. 2 versus 4. Misfits still looking to end it. Haunter needs to find his way onto Hansama, but can't quite do it. Another big taunt from Alfari to lock him down, but Alfari drops instead. Hansama on the run. Nexus turret still standing. TSM reinforcements arrive, and they hold that Nexus.
You talk about Bjergsen's wanting to be a legend. How about Haunter after Bjergsen goes down, ulting in, wreaking havoc on the entire Misfits team. And that Elder Dragon might now go over to TSM. They kill 2 and they have 4.
What a fantastic base defense from TSM. They have their eyes on the Elder. Denying this from Misfits would be such a huge gain for them, but Maxlor is lying in wait. He wants to try and get the steal. He has no flash, but he has the Blast Co.
Already won one smite fight with Svenskeren earlier on. That got them the Mountain Dragon. That nearly gave him the damage to kill the Nexus. It did not. He needs to steal this again as TSM's going for it. It would empower them so much for that push. He's going in.
Maxlor's been a hero this game so far, but he jumps in a little bit too early. TSM immediately turn and return fire. The Elder Drake slightly resets, but it will go the way of North America's #1 team.
Well played there by TSM. They delay Misfits from ending the game. And let's look back at how that all happened.
And this was huge. They flash taunt onto Bjergsen. They get him down, even though the redemption keeps him alive for a fairly long time. And critically, Bjergsen takes down Power of Evil. Who's the next best damage dealer? That's who Haunter goes for. He immediately goes for Hansama, but also knows that if he dies, there's no longer threat. And they're ultimately just trying to buy time for Double if he gets up with Home Guard. He threatens out of the base, and they keep that one Nexus turret alive. Their inhibitor will also be up fairly soon.
Just like we saw with Fnatic and Immortals, this game is a nail-biter. One crucial mistake could determine the outcome of this game. But if you just look at it as a whole, it's 8 towers to 2 in favor of Misfits. They have the kill advantage, but TSM have found the Barons, they have found the comebacks, and they are holding their own in this game.
And Hansama is huge. Look at his items. Max items right now, still deathless in the game. He can unleash onto this TSM team. And they do not have very much armor to deal with him. One of the reasons Misfits still winning these big fights.
I hope that LeBlanc clone isn't acting up again, because we have another pause. Hopefully resolved quickly, just like the last one. We'll give you guys an update whenever we can. But you know, you mentioned how for both these teams, the next big fight, the next big mistake could spell the game. I think the difference in the situation between these two is that for TSM, it quite literally is the game. You've got one Nexus turret barely holding onto a thread of life. The Nexus otherwise would be exposed. For Misfits, you've got quite a line of defense still left. You could lose a fight, you could lose control of the game, but you would not immediately then lose.
Yeah, while I agree, the later the game gets, the less that becomes a true statement.
Yeah.
And it also depends on the locations of the fights, because if this becomes a game with the inhibitor that respawns, if TSM can somehow get mid lane priority back and you're fighting around Baron, those turrets are paper after you get the Baron buff, and they could push through to the end. But I absolutely agree that Misfits have so much control right now.
Quick update on exactly why it's paused. It appears that Doublelift is consistently seeing the LeBlanc clone even when it's not actually spawned. We've got League officials investigating into exactly what's happening with this, see if they can get that fixed. In the meantime, I want to take a look at that base defense again from TSM, break it down a little bit further.
So this is where it all started. Remember, Bjergsen at this point had no flash. Misfits, they want to try and get the pick rather than commit to the Elder, and then they find Doublelift. Out of nowhere, they see the AD carry, they shut him down. So one of the big wave clearers is still alive, but they get the teleport out from Haunter. With the jungler gone, Misfits feel confident to try and go for the end.
Yeah, and here's the big call. Misfits has a free Elder Dragon if they want it. But it is so difficult to actually get those picks. They've been trying all game. They make the bold call to try and go for this. So when you need to watch, do they maximize their turret damage in this play versus balancing it against killing the opponent? Power People took a turret shot before all this happens. That knocks him a little bit low. And then as he dashes in, Bjergsen just...
Oh, so well played from Haunter there, getting the stun and the ulti out from Bjergsen. Beautiful coordination between the two. The fact that Bjergsen loses his life, at least it was an exchange. And then Haunter just acts as a terror. You were right to call him out there, Jack, because he did so much work in that base defense. There is still the super minion to allow Misfits to keep hitting onto the towers, but they committed to the fight rather than to ending the game.
And there's a huge difference between a 100 health Nexus turret and no Nexus turret. That thing gains health throughout the game, and if that's not down, then anyone, LeBlanc with the Shen ultimate throughout the rest of the game, could just walk in and end it. So you 100 health away, which was one auto attack onto a turret or one turret shot missed by Power People, that could have been the difference in getting that second Nexus turret down, not necessarily into the game.
And we talked a lot about how that was such a clutch play from TSM. I feel like throughout this game we've seen a lot of clutch plays, but I do want to highlight one of the clutch players that we've seen from Misfits in Hans Sama, because coming into this tournament, there was a little bit of hype around him. He's a very popular player over in Europe. He's a very young individual making to his first finals in his home crowd in Paris, but now coming to the big stage here in China, in Wuhan. Expectations weren't of the highest. People thought that he wasn't the strongest mechanical player, but so far against Doublelift, he's been doing a fantastic job. And just his damage output this game has been phenomenal. He has twice the amount of damage out of anyone in this game.
Update on exactly what's going wrong. It appears a client restart, managed to fix the issue that Doublelift was experiencing. They're now going to go ahead, restart the clients for the rest of the members of TSM just to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else, and then we'll be able to get right back into game.
Also, due to the duration of the pause, the referees have allowed the players to talk to each other. This isn't this super extended silence that can end up getting to your head, so that's why you see them discussing, even though otherwise sometimes during pauses players are not. And to speak to what you just said, Vedius, about the expectations coming into this tournament, this is absolutely a monumental performance by Misfits. And I also think for TSM, this has been the story of most of their games throughout this stage. They are winning by incredibly slim margins. The Flash Wolves game was back and forth for 54 minutes, and one misposition or one bad flash would have cost them that game. They're in exactly the same position here, where their early game has been so poor, where they're falling behind that they have to constantly stall out and win in the late game. For what it's worth, they were really good at that in North America as well, and they've been drilling that skill for the entire split, but they're once again in the position where one great play by Misfits or one bad play by TSM will end the game.
And being in that position makes every decision in this game so much more critical. Something that otherwise might be a kill or 300 gold in your opponent's pocket is now your Nexus exploding. It's now losing an inhibitor. But now we're back into the game to see exactly how TSM may be able to execute with this Elder Dragon buff, or if Misfits will just continue to control the game.
Yeah, a 1 Infernal Elder is not very threatening. You do get the true damage burn and an extra 50% effectiveness from the Infernal Drake, but that's nothing compared to what would happen if Misfits would have gotten that Drake. So TSM should feel relatively confident knowing they have Flash on Bjergsen and Double, which is why I think they're going to try and get mid lane control.
Now, look at all the summoner spells that are back up and available. Everybody has everything. These next few fights are going to be insane, Captain Flowers. I hope you have your voice ready. I hope you're rehydrated.
We got the water.
We got one game after this, Betty.
Yeah, we still have one game after this as well, but it's going to be insanely tense. Now, Haunter, he has moved towards the bot side because Misfits were trying to get pressure on mid. They still have the super minions pushing down that lane, so they're going to try and get control over the sides. You can see, I believe, to be a slow push in favor of TSM up in the top lane, slowly starting to stack, and Misfits, they're just going to clear out this wave that has been pushed all the way towards their tower. Meanwhile, Baron going to be spawning in about 2 minutes' time.
But as we approach 41 minutes, the Misfits Tier 1 turret may finally fall. TSM finally with enough damage to bring that thing down. They have tried so many times, and now success goes their way. Baron up in under 2 minutes, like you mentioned. Elder Drake also spawning from here on out. That means that there's going to be these neutral uber buffs on both ends of the map for these teams to contest. And you mentioned it earlier, Jack. You said so far at Worlds, we're not seeing the gold leads ultimately come out and be this big, like, oh, they were ahead so much gold, they won the game. It's coming down to team fights and execution, and Baron and Elder Drake are the things that are going to make that really happen.
Yeah, TSM has spent so much time in this murky middle ground of gold leads where no one is majorly ahead or majorly behind, and they've been good at not making the last mistake. That has been the reason they're 2-0 in this group, and Misfits do have the edge here. We need to emphasize with the inhibitor being open and the control around the Baron pit, TSM's got to do something creative to get it back.
Because, I mean, you got to praise TSM for their very clutch decision-making, like going for the Baron, knowing when to pick those fights. And while Misfits have done a great job of finding those avenues to get good fights, it's TSM that always just prevent Misfits from finally being able to end the game. Now, Haunter is coming in from a potential flank, but again, every summoner spell is up for both sides.
Baron in 30 seconds. You saw Misfits putting a bunch of vision around the area. Direct your eyes to the mini-map, and you'll see all those blue side wards around the back edge of the pit. Right now, you can see their vision explicitly on your mini-map. It shows those avenues that TSM might try to approach from if they want to stop Misfits. And just the amount of respect that TSM is forced to show to Misfits right now just because of how much they've been able to do in these fights so far for a team that we said weren't very good at late game team fighting. This wasn't where the team shined. This is where TSM was supposed to be in their element, but Misfits are going right there with them.
It's the Blanc Shen competition. They've been winning fights because they've gotten amazing initiations from Maxlor.
Maxlor doing more than his fair share of the work this game, as now Haunter comes in, trying to make the move on to Power of Evil. Spin scaring, getting down a stun, throwing out another one with the Glacial Prison. How far he makes his way in. Spirit's Refuge to provide some protection. Hansama going to be taken very low. Double having the Redemption come down onto him. Massive stuns from Bjergsen. Redemption keeps the Misfits players in good enough shape to potentially continue here. Power of Evil, the one who's isolated, but he's also the one with all the mobility. Gets away just fine. TSM now with control over the Baron area themselves. They've got the control over the river. They're putting down the vision, sweeping out the Misfits vision.
But they don't have control over the waves. The top and bot lanes are massive, so TSM is in a really tough position here, trying to get control of the mini waves back, and Misfits is pressuring them off.
Misfits health bars are back to full, by the way. TSM telling a similar story, but not quite as strongly. Misfits know they've got control over this area, and the map favors them. Power of Evil jumping out onto Sven, not really the guy you want to find. The Arctic Armor from Sejuani, very effective at preventing those quick bursts of damage. Stun lands onto Hansama. Remember, Hans, no ulti available right now, no summoner spells either.
Look at those top waves you can see in the top lane and the bot. Massive stacks for Misfits.
Yeah, the top wave has 1 cannon, the bottom lane has 3. So both of those turrets have the real potential of going down if TSM doesn't answer.
And yet again, TSM is forced to make a decision. Misfits put them in this spot time and time again. And now they're going. This could very well determine the outcome of the game. TSM on the Baron, not taking it down quickly. Saving abilities, saving cooldowns for the upcoming fight. Baron down to half. TSM still looking for more. Sejuani ulti comes out. Alfari the target. Spirit's Refuge keeping him alive. But Double Lift is down! And Bjergsen runs from Maxlor as Misfits look to clean up the rest of TSM and end this game.
Power of Evil found the chain chain onto Doublelift. The barrier wasn't enough. They killed 3. The minions are already in place for Misfits to end this game.
Misfits know they can win this one. Biofrost can try to waste as much time as he likes. Haunter respawns from the GA. Alfari grabs the kill, and Misfits push up mid.
Misfits, the underdogs in this game. No one expected anything, but they bit hard down onto TSM. They're gonna get the upset win. They're gonna get the game.
They stopped TSM from having the perfect week 1 in groups. They grabbed the ace at the end. This team was excited to play against TSM. They were excited at the prospect of shutting up those chants, and now they did it.
And to Max Lore's point, he did beat TSM faster than he beat Flash Wolves by a whole minute.
What a showing from the number 2 team from Europe against America's number 1 representative. Awesome team fighting, awesome playmaking. They controlled the game well.
And for Misfits to play around that Baron so beautifully, we finally saw them in their element. This was something that so many analysts talked about, how this was a team that relied a lot on Baron. This is a team that often played around Baron. They lost 2 Barons at the start of this game, and then finally around the 3rd one, the crucial one, they had the side lane set up. They had control, the vision around that area. They reset the fight well, and they get themselves their 2nd win of the group.
And when we talked about Group D, the so-called group of life with no Korean team, it was a conversation between Flash Wolves, TSM, and Team WE about who could take first. But a new challenger has emerged in Misfits, 2-1, forcing a 3-way tie for first at the conclusion of their week 1.
This group is going to be a lot of fun to watch in week 2, and I'm especially going to be keeping eyes on Hans Sama in particular. 8-0-6, nearly 500 CS on the Xayah. What a showing from him and the rest of the team. To hear more about how Misfits picked up that win, let's toss it over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Captain Flowers. We have a very interesting Group D all of a sudden as the world's rookies of Misfits take down the number 1 seed from North America in TSM.
I was worried at first when the week started, when they were not sticking to the playstyle that we saw out of them from Europe, but they picked a composition that needed to get ahead, even Ignite in the mid lane on LeBlanc, not taking that teleport, but they executed so well from Misfits, just left, right, and center, specifically Power of Evil, looking for flanks on LeBlanc, being extremely proactive, and Alfari backing him up with the Stand United, making sure that he never got picked off. A fantastic game by them.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the team fights that the execution was going so well. The casters mentioned it, you know, the side lane control, always having those minion waves under their pressure or their tempo advantage. And that was done because you have the high mobility on the LeBlanc and the Shin. So it was, you know, in the macro strategy as well as the micro strategy that Alfari and Power Evil were really taking over the game.
And I think that's what makes it so impressive, right? You cannot really discredit this team. You cannot say, well, they just kind of won some team fights and snowballed. Well, they just had played some sort of cheesy style. They outplayed TSM, both macro and in the team fights.
Absolutely. We've been giving criticism to teams who pick up the Shen and don't utilize it properly in the early game to build advantage. Well, Misfits, they know exactly how to use this pick along with the LeBlanc, roaming down bot lane a multitude of times to start building that advantage.
And I know we went really back and forth on this, that we felt that, you know, maybe it was the Cole, maybe it was the trading. You know, they came into lane Doublelift and Nami and they decided that we're going to be trading all the time. But that meant that they were always low health.
Yeah, they're very low. They're set up for these dives pretty easily. And I felt like it was a bridge too far for TSM to be going not only with Cole, but also with Fervor. The amount of sustain you're actually losing there, and then to Crumb's point, the fact that Nami is actually using, you know, the W's aggressively instead of to heal up Doublelift just meant that they're sitting at low health, and they could set up for these very, very easy dives, and they got put very behind in the early game.
They did, and what they did well, the Misfits, was transitioning afterwards and especially recognizing the mistakes. TSM was really bad this game, but they made plays to come back, specifically that Baron when they tried to sneak it in. But just like Betty was saying, okay, we made a mistake. Let's move forward from this. Let's keep going. We understand how we have to play the team fights. We need to play to the side lane strength. Keep playing TSM, and TSM was just dancing the Misfits song all day long.
And that's the interesting point, right? This was only a close game because of some individual outplays that TSM was making at different times to keep themselves in it. One of which most notably comes here 16 minutes in, Bjergsen with a little bit of fancy feet.
This is actually just incredible. And I know Bjergsen is going to get the credit for this, but huge props also to Biofrost to show up just in the nick of time to assist his mid laner and pull him from the jaws of defeat.
I mean, even using the Summoner heal there, which, yes, that is common for Worlds, but you don't really think about it. The support flying in, the Nami throws a W, throws a heal, throws the ultimate, all of that barely keeping Bjergsen alive. And also, you know, Bjergsen kind of almost daring Power of Evil to use his chains in the minion wave, and he didn't really have the confidence to do it. So he did delay it quite a bit, which allowed time for Biofrost to get in there.
And here's the thing, we could have picked one of about 47 other fights that happened after that one, but we got to take a look at the final fight, the one that gets Misfits the win. This is your Acer Predator replay.
The minion waves is the big story for this one because TSM is forced to make a decision, but they are being surrounded. Look at Maxwell, he's on the backside. That's a huge engagement. So the Flash gets comboed in with Power of Evil, finding double lift, and the second that the carry goes down, it's all over. They played so well with the mobility from all the champions, not just in the macro sense, but individually in the team fights. And you can see that the gold grab, sure, TSM had some gold back. The Cole's coming in, double Cole, 600 gold, the Baron play from them. But eventually Misfits kept team fighting the way they knew they had to, never strayed away from it, and eventually paid off.
TSM got straight up beat here. I think that's the thing we need to recognize. They got straight up beat, and this, again, makes this a 3-horse race for even first place in Group D. And now I want to know what our assessment of Misfits is because, you know, it was kind of hard to judge coming in, and a lot of people did look at them as the underdogs, even under the Flash Wolves in this group. Well, are these guys truly contenders?
I mean, the most impressive thing is still the fact that they've been able to keep their composure. You almost get perfect game by Team WE. You come back against the Flash Wolves. It wasn't the cleanest game, but they did crawl back, and now they have a very clean game against TSM. It's just they're ramping up harder and harder.
Exactly. This team has gone from a game that was bad, mediocre, and now like, whoa, they have just continued to improve every single time. And so when we look at week 2, this is one of the teams to watch out for because they're going to get more practice and they're going to know their opponents a little bit better. And best of all, they stick to the formula that they know works for them.
Final thoughts before we go talk to Power of Evil?
Yeah, I also think that it's incredible that this is such a hard to execute comp, right? This is a LeBlanc that most people say struggles in the team fights, is not going to be successful in the later stages of the game. I was looking at this as a TSM outscale, but Power of Evil comes up big in the last team fighting, came up big throughout the game.
He came up big, so we're going to go talk to him right now. Let's check in with Shox, who's standing by with Misfits mid laner.
Definitely with the man himself, who seems to always do it versus Bjergsen and TSM, a long history and more history in the making. But why is it that you always find those openings when it is versus TSM to start?
I don't know. It's just like every time I meet Bjergsen, I feel like we both want to win so badly. It's like so intense. Every time it's we kind of play assassin against assassin or like always like these kill mages in mid lane. And it's just always really fun to face TSM and Bjergsen especially. And I don't know, it's just I just go really confident into the games because every day my teammates remind me that I'm the kryptonite of TSM. So I can just go into the games with a huge confidence boost.
Yeah, TSM's kryptonite. When you walked off the stairs here, you had a huge smile, and I could see why this is a huge feat for you guys. But it still was a very hard game to win. Azale talked about how it was also a difficult composition. So what do you think it came down to for you guys to get the victory today?
Well, so I feel like we executed our team composition really good. You could see clearly the matchup in mid lane that I'm supposed to make early plays on side lanes, and Bjergsen is supposed to get a CS lead and win the 1v1. And I feel like both mid laners have fulfilled his role. But I got a huge snowball in our AD carry, and Hansama just props to him, played insanely good that game, and pulled out the damage numbers afterwards.
Yeah, Hansama popped off, and with this, you've blown this group wide open. Not a lot of people had expected Misfits to do that much per se, but Maxlor said it here yesterday. No, you know, when you go into a tournament, you're looking to win the whole thing. Where do you see yourself ending? And let's start with the group here.
Well, so everyone expected us to be 4th in this group, so just another time we proved everyone wrong, just like in EULCS playoffs. But now, obviously, our eyes are on the 2nd or 1st seed, so next week we need to perform as good as we did this week, and I feel like we're good to go afterwards.
Well, a fantastic start. One more for the fans. How many more Orianna Nashor 2s are we going to see?
It depends how often my team believes it's good.
Well, okay, well, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Power of Evil. Fantastic victory over TSM. We're going to take a breather, a quick break, but we'll be back with the Marines versus Immortals. Don't go anywhere.
Low on health, no heal available, shield coming down on the devil, but Max Floor bops him.
Maybe you need to wait for me, maybe you need to wait for me.
Kill him. I got him. Kill him. Kill them all. Kill them all. Kill him. Okay. It's 45.
LeBlanc. LeBlanc flashed in.
Dragon's no flash. Nice.
Biofrost's gonna be jumped on next. Power of Evil barely walking away. Flash into the taunt. They've got the lockdown.
Hold up. Go. Combo. Kill him. Nice. Go, they're trying.
Up at 7.
They're not inning. Just try not to die.
Yeah. Survive. I'm up at 3.
Here's up at 2. Size super low. You're doing good.
Bjergsen runs from Maxlor as Misfits look to clean up the rest of TSM and end this game. They were excited at the prospect of shutting up those chants, and now they did it.
If you want to follow the best of the Rift, then you need Team